Everyone, it's Josh from Church Online in Asbury Park. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to pick up the story of Joseph, being resilient to wherever you are planted. We're going to see what the Lord has to say to each of us today. Stick around. Have you ever played golf with someone who on every tee, they shank their drive into the woods? Then they drive their cart over to where they think the ball is at and they just start looking. Normally 2 or 3 minutes is kind of the unwritten rule, but some people take 10, 15, they just take forever. And that is not okay. It's annoying. People who never give up looking for their golf ball are annoying. Sorry if you're one of those people. Well, giving up. There are countless real life, make you feel good stories about never giving up. And honestly, I could bore you with one, but in the end, with whatever example I give, most of us will think, well, that's good for that person or that's good for that team. But what about me? What about my situation? Stories of resiliency can become our story as well. Where are you right now? Where do you want to give up? Maybe you're tired of your job and you just want a new one. Maybe parenting is just weighing on you completely and it's just a heavy burden on you. Maybe relationships in your life are struggling and you just want to cut ties with certain people. Maybe you feel distance in your connection with God and you wonder if this is all it's, really about. But when we start to give up, we start thinking things like, if I only had this, then my life would be better. Or if I only were there at this place, then life would be easier. Or if only I was with this person, life would be so much better. If only I got to do that, I would be more fulfilled. It's easy to think that if I traded up or traded in or exchanged for newer or got something more flashy, then life would just be better. Apple, they've kind of made a killing on this concept. Some people, they're the first in line as soon as the newest iPhone model arrives. And some of these people, you might even be one of them, with the allure of all the new features. And, this one just has a better camera and a much better battery. And with it, my life would be so much better, so much more efficient than with the old one I just got last year. Well, and then we tend to look at what other people have, we covet, and we think that if I had what they had, then life would just be better, I would be happy. Well, living a life of contentment is sometimes a struggle, especially when we dream of different, we dream of better, we dream of a better future. And dreaming isn't bad. We all want to have big dreams for our future. The trouble comes when we are not faithful with where we are currently. We start thinking about a better job, so we become less efficient in our current one. We start thinking about a better marriage, so we are not faithful in the one we have right now. We start thinking about a better life, so we don't enjoy the place we currently live. We start thinking about more, better, different, and we don't give our best to our current situation. There's an old saying that says the grass is always greener on the other side. But let's take it a step further. Our job, honestly, is to water the grass we're currently standing on. I think this is a good picture of what it means to be resilient. To be resilient means to give our best no matter where we are or what our circumstances are. And again, Joseph seems to embody this for us. His life seems to be a good example of someone who was continually dealt a bad hand, and yet God continued to bless him each time. Joseph went from privilege in his father's house to the pit that his brothers threw him into, to being in poverty in the slave market, to the privilege of managing Potiphar's house. And this is where we pick up his story. Now, Potiphar, he's the captain of Pharaoh's guard, and most likely he was like the head of his security force. He was a highly trusted official, and he was no ordinary man. I picture him as a warrior, most likely a man of great character, probably wealthy. And yet in my mind, when I say Potiphar, I think of maybe a round guy. I don't know, but I'm sure he was like a warrior. And here Joseph enters his service. Joseph was now a slave, and for the first time probably in his life, he needed to work. You remember when his brothers were out tending sheep and he was at home? You know, when his brothers were out sleeping in the pasture and he was sleeping in his own bed? Now he needed to be responsible. He was accountable for his own actions. At home, Joseph was the favorite. He was the tattletale, but now he's among the least. He's forgotten. We begin Joseph's story. We pick it up here in chapter big 39 of Genesis, and we read right away in verse 2. It says, "The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, and he lived in the house of his Egyptian master." Some people think they can't be blessed unless they are in authority, in charge of things. We fall to the idea that unless my job title tells others who I am, then I am nothing. Or we fool ourselves to think our value comes in our position, our job, or our level of authority, our bank account, or in the number of people that answer to us. You know, and then Jesus lived and he taught a different way, a better way. Jesus taught a life as a servant. In Matthew, big 20, little 26, it says, if you want to be great in the kingdom, learn to be the servant of all. It would have been easy now for Joseph to do what we so often do, think little of his present position, you know, because it seems so bad. He was a slave. He was not in charge. He had no authority, but Joseph believed God could bless him right where he was. So he didn't wait for a better situation to be blessed by God. He got to work right where he was at. He watered the grass he was standing on. He made the most of his current situation. It's estimated that Joseph served in Potiphar's house for 11 years. And in that time, you know, Potiphar ended up putting him in charge of his entire household. You know, there's a lot in these 11 years that we don't know. And there must have been a moment where this like light bulb went on for Joseph. When did his heart transformation take place from this, you know, spoiled brat to this humble servant? When did his attitude change? Well, something appeared to change in Joseph's life. You know, he grew up watching everyone work around him, and now he appears to value his work. When he arrived in Egypt, he did not know the culture, the language, the ways of business, and so he needed to work hard to be able to run a household like Potiphar's. Something happened in this crisis, something that changed his heart. You know, he could have easily went another way. He could have easily just crumbled. You know, he was carried off as a slave into a foreign land, far away from anything he knew. He could have just given up, not tried, not cared, but he didn't. Somewhere in those 11 years, he became resilient. And yet the story of crisis continued for Joseph. As he was gaining influence in his master's home and God's blessing was pouring out, Potiphar's wife was scheming. She wanted Joseph physically, and she kept, coming after him, and he resisted her advances. Well, in the end, Joseph is falsely accused, and he lands himself in prison. He took a stand, and his coat got him in trouble again. You remember the first coat, the coat of many colors, led to jealous brothers and to him being thrown into a pit. And now the master's wife used the coat which he left behind when he ran out of the house away from her to accuse him of something he didn't do, which landed him in prison. And we end chapter 39 where we started. And it says this, now Joseph in prison, the warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. Joseph's circumstances changed, but God's love for Joseph never did. You know, that's true for Joseph, and that can be true for us as well. We can learn from Joseph at this point in his life that he was resilient, whether he was in favor in Potiphar's house or if he was thrown in prison. He made the best of his circumstances. Now, I'm guessing he was lonely in prison and maybe he even complained when he was a slave, but the warden wouldn't trust a prisoner unless he was trustworthy. Joseph made the choice to be trusted, to be resilient, and God blessed him. Whether he was in slavery, in favor with a master, or in prison, Joseph was resilient. He didn't let his circumstances dictate his attitude. So what are we facing today where we can connect with Joseph at this point in his story? Where can you be fruitful and faithful where you are planted this week? And maybe you're struggling in your job. Well, until you have a new one, make the choice to make the best of your current situation. Encourage a coworker. Work hard. Do your best. Be trustworthy where you are. Connect the dots in your life this week in whatever situation you're facing and grow where you are planted, and God will bless you. Have a great week, everybody.